it is an interesting thing to see though. Like we were just talking before we started recording about some of these younger kids that are jumping up or thinking of jumping up from A or double A or whatever to triple A. And one of the kids that we were talking about, the dad played in the NHL, and we were just talking with Justin. He was saying that the kid is like the best player, like by far, like he's the best player around. But then he said in the same breath, the other son wasn't the best player around. Now he's starting to become a pretty good player as he's getting older, but like he wasn't when he was young. So here you have a NHL. This guy's an NHL dad, or played in the NHL, works in the NHL, and you go down, coach in the NHL, and you looked at it as two kids, and it's like totally different situations depending on the kid. So that kind of stuff is super interesting to me, just how it just happens. And this is why, like, we talk so much about, like, there's only so much you can actually control, you know? So, like, you say this more than I do. What are you getting all bent out of shape for? You can only control so many things. And this being one of them is just the kid might just not have it. He might have it. He might decide he's interested. He might not. And, like, while you're going crazy, running around doing this hockey thing,
So speaking of that, because we can flip the coin, and I'm going to, but I just didn't want to forget this one. So I did a practice yesterday with a group, and the one kid's dad is a great coach and coaches in the NHL right now. And this kid's actually a really good hockey player, but he never dedicated himself to being really good. He's good naturally, can make plays, can think, shoots the puck, shoots the hell out of a puck, and he's got beautiful, like, just not like without having to really think or try, can make, like, you can go through triangles and make slip plays. Yeah, they just got it. But the work ethic is, he just doesn't want to work that hard. He never did, and I don't know if you ever learned that, right? So you can see it in his body. Like, it's not a guy that's it's more lean now, but it's not a guy that looks strong, big, but not, that frame is not sturdy, and because the time was never put into that. In practices, it was never like, let's go hard, and so yeah, there's talent there. Lots of talent, but it's never been. And now Dad pushed it, so there's, like, now what happens now? So you got a kid with talent, got a kid with not so much work ethic, and you got a dad that is pushing the shit out of it, and every time he gets pushed, not pushed, I'll call it pushed. Time he gets pushed, he wants to back away, right? So maybe the approach to him as a like an athlete's kid, maybe the approach to him was not read properly by Dad, but maybe Dad knows that's the only way that it can happen because he's seen it and done it before. Maybe Dad just wants something to come out of his, wants to see the results come through and be a hockey player just like he was. Maybe the kid just doesn't want it. Maybe the kid, this is as good as he's going to get. Maybe it's talent comes from Dad. Maybe it doesn't. Who knows? But I've seen several. So you can take, okay, like, let's take the best of the best, right? Like Wayne Gretzky had kids, and I believe they played hockey. So now, is it the genetics? Probably to a certain degree are going to be there, to a certain degree. But what would make you, what would develop those genetics would be, are you around it enough? So, like, if Gretzky, as he did, lived in, probably had his kids when he was in LA, and his career was more important. And I mean, he's going to feed his family for generations, right? So maybe those kids weren't around the game as much as they needed to be good, or maybe they had a good life and they didn't want to be interested in it, right? But they didn't have the, like, so this is, now you flip the argument again. So, but if they would have had the ice his dad had, the environment, if the environment was there, maybe they would be Wayne Gretzky 2.0. But, like, so there's so many variables to that, right? Because now if you take it now and then flip it the other way, if Gretzky didn't have his backyard rink, would he be Wayne Gretzky, like, just doing his daily thing, right? It's a really interesting thing to see.
Yeah, I think that maybe trying to pull a point out of this conversation, because it's fun to kind of just talk about, but like I said, you can't control a whole lot. So this is why I'm such a believer, like not to be woo woo, but just like staying in the moment, like letting life happen, which doesn't mean don't act and do nothing, but just there's only so many things you can do, you know? And as long as I always give this advice to families and stuff when I do consultations about like one of the big ones right now is about like going to junior camps, like that's starting to come up, right? Because in April, over the next couple months, like they're starting to get camp invites and all this stuff. I know Leamington just sent theirs out, and so I was talking to a family the other day about it, and they were asking about, you know, he got all these invites to all these camps, and they were actually talking about the one in particular was going to a BCHL camp, and it was like, what do you like? Should we go? Was the question, you know? And I say the same thing to everybody. Like, if it's not a pain in the ass, if you can afford it, if the logistics work out for your family, then you want to go for an experience. That's great. If you were someone they really wanted on the team, they'd be contacting you more personally, right? So that's the gist of what I normally say to people. And there's not a whole lot that like for your kids. There's not a whole lot you can do. You know, like there's only so much that your decisions will actually influence. Like there's a lot that your decisions will influence, but it's not everything. You know, like there's a lot of things that you can't actually control. So my advice is always just make the best decisions you can make with the information that you have at the time. And that's kind of something that for myself that I personally live by is like sometimes you don't have all the information, but you have to make a decision. You know, and like I'm finding this even like with the business now, like when we're making certain decisions on, you know, how much something should be or what kind of program to run or what kind of timing it should be. It's like sometimes I don't know all the information, but I have to still make a choice because like the choice has to be now, you know? And so like I can't be mad at myself later for the choice I made right now because I didn't know any different than what I had right now, you know? And so that's one of the things I say to parents and players frequently when I have these conversations is just do the best you can with what you got and don't like let it go after that. You know, let it go after that because what's going to happen is what's going to happen. And it might be good, it might be bad, it might be based on what you did, it might have nothing to do with what you did. And you just don't know. Like this whole conversation we're having is like, it's just,
Well,
you just don't know.
and then, but even you saying that, like I had to do that with my kid, um, is because you'll go nuts as a parent if you don't let it go. You can't worry about everything because you know he's going to be what he's going to be, and but that's the next question: is it when do you let it go? Because if you let it go too soon or not push the right buttons or talk about the right things, then that could be the detriment too. If the base level you have to be doesn't matter. A base level of skill to get to any certain level, but after that, it's like there are certain things. Like I know many ways where and in a lot of ways my son wouldn't even know how important it was, but I've had conversations with him or spoke to him in certain ways that he has no idea how helpful that was.